Okay, so I thought today we would talk a little bit about drawing hair. It's kind of, I consider it like the last frontier of drawing a face, just because it's so individual. It's different from one person to the next. And so very often I just kind of save it till the end. One of the problems that we have with drawing hair is that the left side of our brain has told us that hair is made up of all these little pieces, and so when we go to try to depict it on a piece of paper, we tend to think that that's how we should draw it so that it shows that way. But what we'll do today is we'll look at a couple ways we can kind of not do a shortcut of it, but draw it so that we get a feeling for the hair, but without having to draw every single one. So of course, when we start with drawing the face, we'll start with drawing an oval. And one of the important things about drawing the oval is because we don't know exactly where the hair is going to go, make sure, and it's just true for the rest of the oval too, make sure you draw your oval very nice and light at the top, because more than likely there's going to be places where the hair overlaps the skin of the forehead, and you don't want to have this line showing through whatever hair you put up there. And then the same with down here, you want to make nice light lines, because sooner or later you're going to have to come back down here and make some adjustments with the shape, overall shape. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this guy, and we can see that the hair is really super dark here, and then it's really light here. And there's a very definite edge here where the face ends and the hair begins. And as we go up here, it gets a little bit fuzzier here, a little bit more vague, where there might be an overlap of a little bit of hair. And then it gets up here where there's a definite line once again. So we have definite light to dark. Going around here, then we can see that it's kind of not, it's where the hair overlaps the forehead, and so it's not quite totally one or the other. So in that kind of place, what we want to do, and we can kind of see lines that go this way. So we would put just kind of some lines here. And again, this is where you want to really make sure that this oval shape is very, very light so it doesn't interfere with the look here. So I'm just going to do this to give myself kind of a beginning place. Now I'm going to look at the hair, the actual hair here. I'm going to start here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this line around here, around the outside edge of the hair. And just kind of draw that shape in there. And now don't draw it super duper hard. I want to make it kind of light because I want to be able to make adjustments if I need to. I can see it's not a really solid line. There's some stray hairs and some wispy places. So make sure you just kind of make it light. This is just kind of a guideline so that you can kind of tell where you're going when it comes to drawing the hair. Keep an eye on how far apart, how far away from the face it is. And we can see here there's a lot of different kind of loose hair and wispiness that comes down here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw just a quick drawing, just indicate the ear there. I'm going to stop there, down there. We don't need to go any further down there. So then I'm going to come back up here, and where it's super dark, just above the ear, that's where I would use my pencil to start in making it dark. Just because that's the crispest place right there, that's the highest contrast. I'm going to turn my pencil on its side, and I'm going to draw that in. Now, there's really no shortcuts to hair. You're going to have to just spend some time on it. And I'm going to draw this in, and I'm always going to make sure my pencil moves in the same direction that the hair is going. So down here it's going down sideways. Then it's a little fuzzy right in here, and then we get back up here where it takes the turn, and it's a nice crisp edge again. We can definitely see the difference between the hair and the skin. Now we're going to go back up here toward the top, and we're going to start filling in here. Now the real temptation is to use lines like this to draw hair. And that's because that's what hair looks like. If you were to lay hair on the paper, that's what it looks like. But when we go to draw hair, it's better to get an overall covering, and then we'll work on texture and values. So if you hold your pencil on the side, you're going to get a much broader line. It's going to fill in more quickly, and then that'll give you kind of a base to work with. So I'm going to start here. And if you look at it closely, you can see that there are some curves in here where the hair does take a corner, or I'm sorry, it takes a curve. And so I'm going to start here, and I'm going to make my pencil move in the same direction that the hair goes. Anytime you want something to be, to kind of be believable, always follow the line of the contour of what you're drawing. And now here it kind of starts going off a little bit to the right, So I'm going to go a little bit to the right. It kind of starts slanting down, and then right in here it starts taking the corner, and then it really turns down. So it turns down, 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 and then we have all the hair that goes straight down. Okay, so now we've kind of laid a foundation, kind of gotten the basic lines in, and we can deal with that later. Then we're going to go back, and this is where we look at the values, and we want to see where we want to go darker. So when you squint at this, or if you look really closely, you can see down here at the bottom, at the base, if we look at this kind of like a big cylinder, the bottom third down here is all dark, and then the top third looks kind of dark, and then the highlight is right here in the middle. So I would go back, and I would make some lines that go like this to follow the original lines that we did. Usually I advise people to start at the scalp and go up to make your lines, and you'll see me, sometimes I reverse that, and sometimes I go backwards and go down toward the scalp. But for the most part, you want to start at when you draw fur or hair, you start at the where it starts growing from, and you go up from there. In this case, I'm going to start at the top of here because I'm up above the scalp, and I'm going to come back this way to make it look a little darker. And you see I've got that outline there, but I don't have to follow it absolutely perfectly. In fact, to make the hair look more natural, you probably don't want it to look absolutely perfectly even. You want it to look a little uneven. Okay, and so we've got it kind of going like this. And then we have this little bit of fuzziness here that does turn into some of the curls up on top. And then we keep on taking a look at it, see if we've got the dark places and the light places where we want them to be. This one would continue to go this way. And I tend to hold my pencil between my pointer and my middle finger, and then that kind of holds it nice and flat. The pencil's a tool just like anything else, except there are various ways you can use it. Straight up and down to write your name, or kind of on the side here, or anywhere, any degree in between also. Okay, now when we look at it, we kind of have this roll look, when in real life there are some highlights here. So if you have an eraser that has a very nice pointy edge, the making lines this way, the way I just made them here too, are very much easier to erase than those kind of lines. Anytime you're using the pencil, holding it up and down like you're writing your name, the pencil digs into the paper, makes kind of a little dent, and then the graphite fills it in, and it ends up staining it, and it's really hard to get it out. Now, after you erase lines in like that, you may look at them, and even though you have a pointy eraser, you might say, well, no, they need to be smaller. So we just go back in and we just fill in some of the great big places. We might even just cut them in half and end up with two smaller kind of places. Okay, and then we have some wispies here that kind of go up above, and so you can add some wisps up there. And then you've got this whole variety of shapes that kind of give you the feeling that the hair is there, that it's going back away, and then it's going down. Okay. Now let's look at a couple other instances of how we would draw hair. I guess I'll maybe just use this same oval. We have a whole different circumstance here. This guy's hair, if we drew the oval, it would pretty much follow the exact shape of his hair. We can tell because it's just kind of this buzz cut. And it also has this salt and peppery kind of look. And we can't see definite lines like this. It's way more like just speckles. And so what we want to do, what I would do is I'm going to lighten these up. Most of the time, lines don't have to be completely erased. You can leave some of them behind for guidelines. And let's say this is his ear. If we want to do this, this is perfect for using the side of your pencil because I can still see where my guideline is. And I can make little lines, and they're just kind of all different directions. But try to keep really close to that shape that follows the top of the head. And you can see mine looks pretty even here, but here toward the top, there starts to get some darker places in there. And so we want to make some little marks. Again, we're just using kind of halfway to the tip, almost completely to the tip, but not quite. And we want to make little lines like this. There's no shortcut. You just have to put in a little bit of time to try to get some of these textures in here. And then if it looks like you went too dark, well, you've drawn with the side of your pencil a little, so you can go back with your eraser and make some little dabs, and that can lighten it up. Okay, so that'll give you a whole different kind of effect. All right. Now let's go to something here that really makes the left side of our brain ache. Okay, so here we have a model and lots going on here, a lot going on. So let's talk about how we would attack this if we were going to be doing a drawing. Once again, we do our oval super light because we don't want it to interfere with what we draw on top of it. And then again, the sides of our head are pretty straight, so we would just trim that down just a little bit as we go along. I'm seeing a little bit of a shadow under here. Oh, that's like, there we go. Okay. So when we want to look at something like this, to draw this, it's really tempting to take our pencils and just start drawing hair and drawing hair and drawing hair using the kind of line that you would use when you write your name. But that will end in endless frustration. So what we want to do is, instead of looking at each individual hair, we want to look at big pieces, because she has a lot going on here, but we can divide it up into sections. So she has this part here, which is a very gentle curve coming down. And then if you look at this, it's kind of like a stretched out S shape. It's kind of the top curve of the S, and then it gets all stretched out and it comes down here. And then it kind of takes a turn down here. So where this ends here, all this hair kind of comes over, and then at the very end it takes a turn down, and that's an important part of this to make it believable. Then over here we have some that's tucked under there, and it's another similar shape, and it comes out here and then takes a sharp turn down, and it follows her face for a little bit, and then it slants over this way, and then it also comes down. These lines also come down right at the very end, right at the very end. And then we have some wispies here that we can get in later. Now you'll notice that if we draw her oval, it's going to be coming about up to here or so. So her hair is fluffier on top. So if this is our oval, her hair is probably going to come up a little bit above that, but we'll figure that out in a minute as we go along. So you won't necessarily be following exactly on the top of the oval that you drew, because sometimes hair is very fluffy, especially with models. They do a lot of mousse and things. So let's find this place here, and it's to the right of center, and I do have a little bit of a line there. I'm going to kind of break it up instead of erasing it completely. And this is the same instance as we saw with that first guy. We have some hair coming over the skin, and so we have a little bit of skin showing through the hair, so it's not definite hair, it's not definite skin. So this is another kind of one of those in-between places. I'm going to start above that in-between place by making this beautiful curve and coming around here and out, and it's about even with her eyes. So right here is about above where that partial place is. Actually, I'm going to move that down a little bit because she has this much of her hair height, and I'm going to make a curve come around up here, and it comes down and it goes past her face. It comes way out here past her face and then down. And her eyes would be right about here, so it's a little bit lower than her eyes. So we'll move that up a little bit. Always kind of keep track of what you're even with, or what you're drawing in proportion to. Let's start here now, and we're going to do this S-shaped curve I talked about, and it comes down, and it comes down toward her eyes, and then it swoops over, and then it goes down. Okay. Now up here we have this top part of her head. The fluffy part of her hair comes over here, way past the edge of the oval, and comes down about to there. You can leave all these lines on here until the very end. And you'll see we can just take care of them then. Now we have this piece coming out from here. It's right up against her face. So if this is right up against her face here, it comes straight down and then curves over, and then it takes that sharp turn at the end, and that's really important. This comes over and comes down too. So we're drawing these extra little pieces in. It's kind of like if you were taking this model's hair and you wanted to make her into a plastic doll, and her hair was made out of a solid piece of plastic. You would have to identify which big chunks you would create to make it look like these big chunks of hair. Okay, then out of this, also from her cheek, the looser ones come down, and then they just come down, and they're just kind of wild. They're not kind of in a big bunch. And then we've got one that comes down here and swoops this way, and one that swoops that way and comes over this way. Okay, and then what we would do, I'm only going to deal with this side of her face just in the interest of time, Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to erase the pieces the lines that I absolutely don't want to show when I start doing the hair. And here on the end, I don't want a straight line there, so I'm going to make a broken line because we want it to have that uneven look. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look to see where things are really, really the darkest. And where my eye goes first is this place under here. So we have a dark place under here. And again, following where the hair would go, the direction that the hair is going. And I call these caves because no matter what your hair color is, especially even with blondes, you end up with these places where the light just doesn't get to. And you have to include them. They're very important. They will make your drawing look more 3D. And then along her jawline, and then kind of up against that one lock of hair that comes down that way. Okay, so there's the darkest parts. Then if we go up here, we have a dark part up here. And we always want to follow the lines as best as we can that the hair is growing. If we try to go zigzag, we won't get the feeling of the hair. Another line we can see is on the back edge of this chunk of hair. It starts small and then gets wider. And I might be going kind of dark on this. I can always go back and lighten it up with the eraser. And then it gets thinner again. And then there's another one behind it right there. So we've got that in there. And now we can go back and we're working from biggest pieces to smallest pieces. Now I can see down here there's a piece that's pretty wide, or an area that's pretty wide and dark. I can put that in there and it goes right down to the edge. And then here's some dark places that come up. Okay, and then we can go back and we're working from biggest to smallest and from thickest to thinnest. So we would get these little pieces in here. And then down here, the hair all swoops over this way. And it takes that turn at the very end. And then this comes out from underneath that big S shape up there. And then it's just a matter of just getting immersed in what you've got going on here. Okay, so we've got blonde hair. You can eventually go back, and there are some places where there's some very thin lines. I wouldn't go very dark, but I would go some very thin lines, and just keep filling it in like that. Now sometimes you can use your blender or just your finger and soften everything down and see how that's starting to look for you. And then you can go back, and if it looks like it's too soft, you can erase some places back in for super duper highlights. And maybe you softened a little up too much and you need to go back in and make some of the dark places again. Okay, so that'll give you the feeling of the fluffiness and all the things that are going on. My next video, I'm gonna do one right after this, and I'll post that as well. Some hair really presents more of a challenge when it's really, really curly like this, and we'll talk about that in the next video in the interest of time. So good luck with that. Remember, looking for the big chunks of things first, very lightly kind of put them in, and then go back. First the big spaces, then the small spaces, first the thick lines, then the thin lines. And you should do all right with getting some hair. And sometimes it takes practice, and it definitely takes patience. You just have to get immersed in it. Okay, thanks, Joey. See you soon.